Go we back to Remy now?
Remy, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I guess so. Okay. Okay, good. There's a couple of them here. And these are these you mentioned shooting rolls of film with them. Are these film? These are digital.
No, this is digital. This is digital. That's digital also. Within the last year, I really kind of settled and found my voice, I guess, in terms of color grading, color tone, what I want my photos to look like. Because as anybody knows, it's a journey, and you start out, wanting to try all of these different things, and you start out wanting to say, well, I can do it color, I can do black and white, I can do it, you know, lifted shadows, I can do so many different things. And I think it was maybe a year or two ago where I kind of was like, oh, this is what I want my photos to look like. And that kind of spread across my body of work since, and it's really brought in a lot of things. But this photo is probably is one of my favorites from the shoot also, because it's fun and it's real, and it's colors look great, the clothes look great. Remy's smiling, happy. I'm happy. I'm probably smiling back in my camera.
How do you approach color grading in your work? Like what you mentioned color grading and how you want your images to look. So do you have a system in place for yourself? Like what's your
Yeah,
process?
pretty much. So I've been using Capture One for 9 years or something like that now, whatever it was. But I used to be an ambassador with them, and a few years ago, they had asked me and approached me and asked me to make my own presets, which I did, and for a while they were selling on the website. And in that process, I discovered a lot of tools and tricks and a lot of things I had just kind of not really spent a lot of time on previously. I just sort of was like, oh, film presets and slap this one on. It looks like portrait. Slap that one on. It looks like Tri-X. And then when I finally started doing like a real deep dive into it, I discovered, uh, um, a lot of things that I had kind of glanced over in terms of like shadows and highlights and
Mm.
color. And especially now with the file, like I was talking about before, with the files from the R5, they're just so, the dynamic range is just, it's incredible compared to what it was even 5 years ago. And you're able to bring highlights and lift shadows and bring things back. And, so I don't necessarily know that I have an overriding like rule or philosophy or anything, because I'm constantly towing the line between this is what I want my photos to look like, and this is what the clothes look like in real life. And there's always like, I want my photos to look like a nostalgic, like you know, sort of like a throwback a little bit, but I don't want them to look too digital. I don't want them to look too like I'm trying to make them look like film. Um, Obviously, I want them to be able to stand next to my film photos and not be too far removed from them. Um, but yeah, it's. I think I don't want to say I take every photo, knowing what I'm going to do with it, but I would say in the last few years, I've definitely moved more towards like knowing what the photos are going to look like once I'm done toning them, as I'm actually taking them, which I think was a huge growth point for me, because early on you're just like, oh, I'm going to take as many photos as I want, and I'm going to try a dozen different presets, and whatever works. And now it's more of like a you have an aesthetic, and you have an overall body of work that you want to look kind of similar, at least. And I think looking at my website, I try to maintain like, all right, I don't want anything to stand out too much, but there's a you know a range that I like to have.
So when you're creating that box or those boundaries for that playground for you and your subjects to kind of improvise within, and you're thinking of that aesthetic and color grading, now are you choosing? Hey, you're going and seeing what's out there, but are you choosing backgrounds according to matching it for the color of the jacket, for example?
No, that was completely random, because we had scouted that the week before the shoot, and then the stylist and I were just driving around taking pictures, and we scouted probably about a dozen places. And I didn't know what the clothes looked like until I showed up at the stylist place to start going through them. And Yeah, it was. I didn't. I don't think I realized how closely it matched until I had been like when I took a breath after the shoot and got home and started looking and said, "Oh, wait a minute, it actually works really well because not only is it, you know, similar, but it's almost exact between the fences and the jacket and the shirt and everything else. It just was." And I'm thinking like maybe she did that, maybe the stylist.
Yeah.
Did
Maybe
that.
she's
Probably
like, maybe
paid
you have
more
a good
attention.
stylist, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Because she's really good. Actually wouldn't put that past her because she's brilliant. So